It's not a touch screen, sorry. Welcome everybody to infrastructure meeting for Wednesday, 1st of December. First of all, apologies and leave of absence. I have an apology for Councillor Sedgwick and also for Councillor Thompson, who may be able to zoom in a bit later on, but I'll take apologies for both those people. Do I have a mover? Councillor Smith, Councillor Eyre, all in favour? Raise your hands. Thank you. Any disclosures of interest? No disclosures of interest. Okay, moving on to that. Yes, sorry.
You missed your status of agenda items.
I've got, oh, sorry, confirmation of minutes, confirmation of the status of the agenda, and also that all reports be received. Do I have a move for that, please? Councillor Gibb, Councillor Church, all in favour? Against? Carried, thank you. Close of interest, right. Page 4, confirmation of the minutes held on Tuesday, the 19th of October, 2021. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Eyre, Councillor McAnally, all in favour? Against? Carried, thank you. Right, actions register, page 13. I will take that as read. Do we have any questions from that? Seems to be a good update. Thank you for that. Councillor Church.
Sorry, through you, Chair. I didn't put up my hand. Just the first one, I didn't understand the answer for that truck on page 14. The last question, the last section said the main question asked was the effect on capital, which is what I asked Carol and Watercare to answer. But that's not an answer, that's a question.
Which
top of page 14, last sentence, the status, just saying I've asked Carol and Watercare to answer.
Okay.
Does that mean we're going to carry the action forward, or we have got Watercare in PX?
Yes, we could look, we could maybe ask that question with Matt in there. Otherwise, we will follow that up and get an answer to us before the next meeting, but get that.
Maybe just easy just to carry the action forward, perhaps.
Yep.
Mr. Chair, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, page 15, open spaces. First report, open spaces contract update. So I'd like to welcome Gavin Andrews here from CityCare to present. Also, sorry, in the status of the agenda, there was an update sent through from Democracy of Gavin's report that everybody should have received. So welcome, Gavin. Thank you for attending today and giving us an update, and I'll hand it over to you.
Great. Yeah, thanks for inviting me too. I'm just going to share my screen. Is everyone seeing that?
Yes. Yep.
Just get this PowerPoint started. Okay. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Gavin Andrews and I manage the CityCare Parks team here. We're based in Ngaruawahia. So I'll just go through. I did amend the report just to make it a bit more smoother and to the point. So it was getting a bit too long, so I'll go through it. So basically, our purpose is to enhance the well-being of our communities, and our values are: we discover, we deliver, we care. Now, we've recently made a new strategy when we've got these 5, we call them the 5 high fives that we're working towards, that we believe will put us, will make us work to our strategy and our values. So basically, the first one is we are a good Kiwi company. So we believe if we honour tiriti, the sustainability in the future and thriving local communities, that will make us a good Kiwi company. And we are proudly 100% Kiwi owned. We do hire and support local, and we do contribute to thriving the local communities through impactful partnerships. One of the other important high fives is people and their safety are at the heart of everything we do. So our people, our customers, and our communities. So our communities is our why we do the job. We are a world-class service business, so we're customer-focused, effective, and we provide effective and efficient services, and we are informed decision-making. Just to quickly go over, for those who don't know, the services we currently supply to the Waikato. So we provide horticultural services, so the shrub guard maintenance, the annual bedding plants, ecology sites, renewals, and landscaping. We also deliver the sports field and passive turf maintenance. That includes all mowing, some road berms, sports field renovations, and the line marking you see out in the fields. And general parks maintenance, we do litter collection, graffiti removal, boat ramp cleaning, tracks and trails maintenance, playground inspections, and we provide all the sector services to the community. And this is probably a great example of where we strive to employ local people and they understand the community. So often our sectors, depending on the burial, will lay the interior with ferns or with hay, depending on the person, because they often know who's been buried. We deliver minor capital work. So this is new that we've just started up this year, where we've put in place a model to self-deliver minor capital. We believe that if we self-deliver this, we'll provide better value to the community, and this is going well. And we do utilise the local subcontractors for specialised works. We also have a big minor capital team up in South Auckland, and we are liaising with them for training and upskilling our staff down here as well. And you'll see in those pictures, that was a recent collaboration we did with our Auckland team to get those parklets in Raglan there. Operational improvements. So we continue to improve and upskill and deliver the team. You can see where we started in 2016, we're about 95%, and we've managed to increase those quality audits to 98% there on average. So yeah, we do emphasize on upskilling and currently work to the best practice or industry standards there. In the environmental side of things, we're quite keen and improving on that. So at the moment, we're decreasing our carbon footprint with implementing electrical tools and hybrid vehicles into the fleet. We're looking at reducing glyphosate and agrochemical reduction, and also fertilizer leaking into the river. So we've changed our fertilizers recently. So we've got a low leach, probably minimal leach, slow release fertilizer that we do on sports fields. KPI compliance. So we consistently receive a higher 100% KPI compliance each month. There's no systemic failure. And if we do have some issues, we're quickly to put our hand up and admit that that was done wrong, and we'll resolve to get the issue fixed. Recent example was there was, I think, some issues with boat ramp cleaning, so we've changed our schedule to always go at low tides and even take advantage of the king tide, so we get big surface area cleanage of those ramps as well. So always keen to improve and take feedback in from the community. So we're now into year 5. I'll just quickly go over what that means. So again, we care our people. So we're really wanting to increase the local Māori and Pacifica staff employed in our workforce. We're currently at 62% Māori workers in the Waikato district. We're increasing women and supporting them in the leadership roles, and we were highly recommended this year in the New Zealand Diversity Awards. And again, with our people, our staff, meaningful career progression and upskill the local staff. We provide a multitude of qualifications ranging in the Hort level 2 to 4, even just driver license level 2s, 3s, wheel tracks and rollers, and all the traffic management and health and safety qualifications that are needed now. We're also working towards a living wage. We've gone away from the minimum wage, and we're pretty close to meeting those targets there. We should have that all done in the next month with all our staff in the Waikato on the living wage. We also do staff recognition. That's really important. We often catch up each month as a team, and those staff that have done really well over that month and got great feedback from the community, we reward them with a voucher and recognition in front of all the other staff as well. So it's an encouragement that we do there. Customer service. So we constantly recording all the data. These two graphs just show since started contract all the compliments and complaints, and also the customer satisfactory service we do. So all the PRK jobs that come in each month that we get, we'll complete the work and then we'll ring everybody just to make sure they were happy with the job and was it completed on time, and other questions and any improvements we can make there. Community engagement, that's a big part of what we do. So community is at the heart of everything we do. We love to support local community events and also community organisations. So to date, we've provided 401 hours of community help to over 168 activities. This has ranged from the Horachu Virus School planting, recently the Ngarawahia Roller Door project, the murals, putting anti-graffiti. We had the Anzac Day poppies that we made, little libraries, and we also offer free burials for all infant and stillborn through the community there. Health and safety is really important for us. We really strongly emphasise on the near miss. As you can see there, most of the incidents reported have been near miss. There's been no major incidents in this contract so far, all are quite minor, including all the environmental, vehicle and general incidents. Innovative culture. So we're always looking to improve, and it's a big part of what we do is looking for projects and better ways of delivering our service. So at the moment, we've something we've done recently is the plant pest weed reporting. We've made up some books working with Waikato District Council and the Regional Council to come up with the worst pest weeds out in the district. These books were made and supplied to all our staff. So while they're actually out there doing the maintenance and they see these weeds growing, they report it in, and then we can get them removed from those parks. We're also doing these fulvic acid trials to reduce glyphosate. So I see that was some questions were asked about that. So currently what that is basic fulvic acid. It's a natural, it's nearly like a fertilizer organic mix that's located naturally in the soils and is now taken out. And what we've found is if we mix that with glyphosate, we can reduce the amount of glyphosate and we get the same results. So we're currently down to a 30% fulvic acid mix to a 70% glyphosate mix. And we're still conducting trials throughout the country, and we're quite confident we may actually get down to a 50% reduction there. So these trials are being conducted in Waikato, Auckland, Tauranga and Christchurch. We need to just, as we're making the rate higher, we just need to go over a whole year on different plant species to make sure that's going to work there. We've also implemented a Get Home Safe application, so all our staff have a lone worker GPS device on them. If they get into trouble, they can push that and it'll give us their location of where they are, and we can help them out straight away as it notifies the appropriate people there. Recently, we've also providing to the council free of charge a fulcrum asset condition reporting. So we're going around different assets, putting in a big report on what assets we see and what condition they are. So lately we're doing tracks and trails and providing that report so council can plan works over the upcoming years. We've got a lot more of those reporting to do over the next year. It's been had great positive feedback on that, and it's worked well. So we're going to continue that on. We also track the waste removal, and just nationwide, because CityCare is a nationwide company, we share all our innovations with each other and always working towards improving there. That's pretty much it. Is there any questions?
Yeah. Can we go back to full screen, please, Lynette? Thanks. Thank you very much for that, Gavin. Good update. I see we do have a few questions, but I do have a couple of questions myself, so I'll go with them first. So it's really good to see that you're aiming for the living wage for your staff.
Yep.
I know that it's well supported here in council, something we would like to see. So in saying that, are you working with your contractors as well, on helping them to be able to attain that as well?
Yeah, we are. We've just started the talks. We're going to concentrate on our people first, and then we'll work with our. So we do have 3 contractors, for those that don't know, that we use for scheduled works full time, and they range from Raglan through the Waikato district right up to northern Waikato, and we do use a multitude of smaller subcontractors for specialised works as well. But yes, we will be getting into talks with them next year.
Great, thank you. And just the other thing is more of a comment. So with you talking about your weed spraying and weed control,
yeah,
probably a call. I think other councillors get it, but I get a number of calls complaining that our contractor or council spraying the weeds in the rain, heavy rain, etc.
Yeah.
Since then, I have followed that up and with you guys to say that you just do put an agent in there, but it's probably some way of how do we relay that when that's happening, because everybody rings up and says, you know, this is crazy, they're spraying, they're wasting money, sort of thing. So it's just more of a comment, really. So
okay, I'll work on that.
Yeah,
we might be able to put a number on the truck that's spraying. If anyone wants to call that, he'll go directly to us. Okay,
great, thank you. Right, we've got a few questions, so we'll start. Councillor Ia.
Thank you. Great report. Thank you very much, Gavin. I'm just interested in your fulvic acid trials that you're talking about. Now, in rural areas, you might be aware that bristlegrass is the most problematic roadside weed, which admittedly not just from mowing, but also through contracting, is spreading rapidly into the paddocks. Yeah. How are we able to obtain details about the effectiveness of those trials on this really problematic weed?
When we've finished these trials, we will share our information with you. And so not only, I think recently as we're doing the fulvic acid trials, we've also done the pine oil trials as well. So if you're interested in that information, we can provide that. But yeah, we'll just share what we've found. So if there are specific weeds that you see are quite problematic, if you want to contact me after, we could work some sites out where they are and actually start the trials on there as well.
It would be fantastic. I'd love to do that. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Church.
Thank you, through the chair. Gavin, just first off, I'd like to say that I've found CityCare and yourself personally has been professional, proactive and efficient, and have I can't see any complaints coming out of North Waikato. I feel like that what you've done up here has been exceptional, and whereas many people have appreciated your efforts and CityCare's. Excuse me, Mike. I guess just following on from what Councillor Patterson said around livable wage, which is great. Presumably, if there's any pay equity issues, those around equitable jobs for equitable pay, that's presumably part of that process.
Yeah, definitely. We're quite, because we're traditionally a council-run company, we're quite heavily union-based still, and we have quite a detailed contract that puts people on their skill, productivity, and some other rates there on where they can work towards. So what we do every year, we catch up with all our staff and do an annual review, and we see what they're wanting to do, where they're wanting to head, we really encourage promoting staff to stay in the company and work their way up. I guess an example at the moment is a local person, Jason Oakes, who started with us as a labourer last year, showed some really great initiative ideas and workmanship. So we've now promoted him up into the team leader position, and he's undergoing formal training there so he can help him with his job. So that's what we do. We always try and upskill our staff, and for the pay scale, we have all these boundaries set, and we let them know, if you want to get to that, this is what you need to do. As soon as you do that, tick the box and up you go.
Thank you. Gavin, my question is around that COVID in the North Waikato, particularly in terms of being in level 4 and 3 a lot longer than the rest of the Waikato.
Yeah.
And I've seems to have been some issues around being able to get jobs done because contractors are perhaps Hamilton based. So how have you navigated and found that in terms of delivery of level of service?
We were okay. We ended up all our staff were qualified for the border passes. So since August, we've got about 12 staff that regularly go through that border. So we have to get the COVID test every week. And all our staff were more than happy to get it done. We've actually had no grumbles or no complaints. And they've been getting through the border. The police know them now. So as soon as the CityCare truck rolls up, they have a quick check going through. So as far as productivity wise, it wasn't too much of an issue, and we have helped some of the local subcontractors get in there. It was a bit of a tricky one because the Northern Waikato, we knew it wasn't really Auckland yet. We had to work with that border, so it did work well, and we've managed, even through the lockdowns, we managed to get quite a lot of staff with essential services work they were able to do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Green.
Thank you, Chair. Kia ora, Gavin. Really refreshing presentation. Thank you.
Oh,
and love the cordial about the living wage. I think it's great. So just a couple of queries. With respect to the work on you employing a lot of Māori, that's great. I'm curious as to your engagement with parties like Waikato Tainui, who are really we've got a big effort underway around social procurement. And then my second question is around whether you've connected with the Waikato River Authority, given the work that you're doing around fertilisers to mitigate leaching into the rivers.
No, we haven't, as far as the river one goes. I did meet up with them a couple of years ago, but we didn't really get much headway with that. But happy to engage with them if you're able to provide me contact details, because we're quite keen on changing our practices to meet those environmental, especially with the river. I'm pretty confident the fertilizer we use now, there's zero leaching into the environment. We've changed to a slow release, so there's only there's a small percentage that gives that quick uptake, and we've changed to these prills that release slowly depending on the conditions, and they're also got a protectant layer on them, so if there's a lot of foot traffic, they don't break down as well. They keep that. And as far as interacting with Tainu and that, we've got some plans in place. So we've recently established a board through CityCare. It's just in the process now where we've asked for interest. So we're getting a lot of all our field staff on that board where they're and there's a lot of local Māori people that were really interested. So we're just starting that up. We're getting their ideas on what they want to see and do in their communities. But we are looking at engaging early next year because we're really keen to get local school leavers working with us and seeing if they want to work with us. We've started that program, and I think it's called Gateway in Tauranga, and it's worked really well. And we're getting the school leavers to come work with us. If they like it, we give them a job and train them up.
Yeah, great. I'd love to connect with you, and I'll help connect you with a few people that would love to have a cordial.
Yeah, that would be neat.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Mr. Green. Councillor Maguire.
Yeah, thanks for your presentation, Gavin. I'm just wondering whether you deal with driveways within reserves. The one I've got in mind is Martingi Reserve driveway in the parking place there. I requested something to be done with the driveway. It's full of potholes, and someone in the end privately dealt with it. So I'm just wondering, do you cover that or not?
No, we don't do the surfacing of roads or driveways. If you want, you can always flick me an email, and I might be able to point you in the right direction. We've had a few projects last year that have been flicked to me, and I because I deal with council, may know who to direct that information to.
Well, thanks for that, Gavin. That's all. Thank you.
Cheers.
Is this the forum for individual little problems, or?
Yeah, no, look, we just got one more question. So we've got one more person that wants to speak. So Councillor Lynch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gavin, thank you very much. Full credit to CityCare. You're doing a really great job. I'd like to thank you for presenting to the Huntly Community Board. They really appreciated putting a face to the company name. Right. So that went down really well. I really admire your company's ethos and particularly employing local people, not just Māori, but employing local people who have local knowledge. I've stopped quite a few times and spoken to your staff, thanking them for the job they're doing. But I do have a question. I'm not sure whether it comes to you, whether it will be part of your contract, or Ross Bayer could answer it. It's weed spraying. The islands coming into Huntly and leaving Huntly. Huntly's looking very shabby, and I don't know whether that will be part of your portfolio once it's handed over to Waikato District Council. So could someone just answer that for me, please?
I think I'd say that's on the roading contract. I don't know what their specification is. We do have small roading berms and gardens, but we do service those monthly. You could flick me through some detail and I can find out for you, but I would say that's on the roading contract.
Thank you.
Okay, I was just wondering when it gets handed over to WDC.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Lynch. I think that's something to be part of the revocation work that'll be going on with Jackie and Ross. So we can follow that up at a later date. Thank you. Right, we have no more speakers. As you can see, there's a number of questions there. So this contract, Gavin, and CityCare is very important to all of us. It's very important to the community.
Yeah,
it's the one that front faces everybody. It's the visuals.
Yes.
That the community sees. So it's very, very important. And I myself have to admit that there's been a vast improvement with CityCare in the last 12 to 18 months. So just like to congratulate you on that. Thanks for presenting today, and be very keen to have you here once or two or three times a year just to update us. So thank you very much. Wish you a Merry Christmas and all of your CityCare team, and thanks for coming along.
Great, thank you. I'll pass on your comments to the team, and yeah, more than happy to come to more meetings. Yeah.
Great, thank you very much. Right, thanks for that. So moving on to page 42, the Alliance presentation, 6.2 on your agenda, page 42. Alliance presentation with Gary Delarue. Is Gary? Hi, Gary. How are you? I'd like to welcome you along, and I'll hand it over to you to present to us. Thank you.
Share our screen here, Brett. I've got Brett Kelly here with us, our asset manager as well, so in case there's any questions about strategy. So basically, this was a presentation I put together for the principals group, and Eugene and Caroline, just to talk about the process we went through for our rollover. So it was sort of aimed mainly at that. So we'll start. Yeah. So we the sort of things I'll cover is sort of the rollover review, performance, levels of service, success, and focus areas at the moment. That's just our new Alliance purpose and strategy, which came out of the whole review process. So that's just an example of that. So in terms of the rollover review, it was very comprehensive, looked at all aspects of the contract and our performance and the way our structure was set up. We had independent consultants came in, we had a whole range of workshops and presentations, and then we had a whole list of actions which we've slowly worked our way through. So very comprehensive and mainly driven by independent consultants. Governance, it started with the governance. We looked at the principals group and their statement of intent, so they revised that. So what the governance team look at in terms of their role on the contract. We had a series of workshops aligned with my staff and the PG to sort of get that aligned. So that's been a real positive aspect. Then we looked into the scope in terms of the background, intent, and purpose of the alliance. Really going back to what the council would like to get out of the alliance. So I looked at all activities and then I come up with a new agreement, which Jackie Bishop sort of championed really, and all parties have contributed to that. So that's been released just recently. Structure. One of the key parts of the structure was Ross's idea was to actually get a customer facing team. So what we did was a restructure, and so we put created a new position, which was the alliance role with Graham Mahey looking after sort of inspectors, the quality assurance technician, the customer people like Pauline, and the traffic management coordinator. So all those roles are sort of customer faced, all under one role. So it's actually worked well. It's we all still work as one team, but they're sort of like almost independent in terms of their activities. They're out there doing the inspection on the road, they're doing the QA of work we do, and it's all reported through to Graham, and he's on our leadership team as well. So it's working very well, actually. So that was a good positive outcome from it. Council engagement. So one of the key things that Ross and others wanted to get out of it was more engagement, so increased involvement, greater transparency, and this one team working closely with the roading team and other parts of the council. And then the whole ethos is customer comes first. Done a few things to enhance that. So one of the things we did, we worked with the consultants to look at culture. So we did a number of surveys, workshops, and come up with some new values, and then a culture plan rollout. Unfortunately, COVID's got the better of us in terms of we're all ready to roll, and then COVID came. So that's still yet to be completed. But I mean, we're up and running with the new values. One of the things we do regularly at the beginning and the end of the year is an internal survey for the office and the crew. So the results are there on the right there that basically show that we've got some pretty impressive results from our team in terms of what they think of us. There was a couple of things that have scored slightly below 90%, like safety, everyone walking the talk, and some conflict issues, which I think we've dealt with since then. So pretty impressive results, including all the team and crew and the temps that come through the process. So that was pretty promising from our point of view as a leadership team. And that was just a snippet of one of some of the actions we came out. It was a big long list of actions to come from the whole rollover process. Right. So the other thing we revamped is reporting. So we sat down with Ross and worked out what sort of dashboard he wanted. So we've changed those. There's a copy of our values. We did some workshops, revised short dashboards were sort of revised. One of the things that Ross and I did was got together and formed a sort of a roading governance board. So it's Ross and I, and it's chaired by Luke McCarthy, and Paul is on it as well. So we've got sort of all of us sitting there going through Ross's projects, so that we get young project managers coming and reporting on it. So we get a sort of snapshot of where the project's at, what the issues are, and what we need to do in terms of roadblocks or any other risks or potential issues we've got on a project. So that's working well as well in terms of just having a clear focus on where we're at with all those projects. So that's been positive. And again, we revised the reporting for the for the PG. So we've got some all the teams, including Graham's team as well, putting an input into that. So we have a comprehensive report every 2 months when the PG meet. So one of the things that sort of drives the Alliance is this performance framework. So it's a model that sort of drives, I guess, leadership, the culture, and then ends up, if you do all the 30 odd KPIs and achieve those, you should actually get the results you want to get. So we sit down with Ross every year and go through that. And so we've enhanced it to include some extra measures this time around, tweaked a few things, but it's pretty comprehensive. And so it takes a lot of time driving that. So that's part of the sort of the non-price part of it, which is what we do to measure our performance in terms of strategy and leadership and partnership, zero harm, that type of thing. And then on the other part of it is the pay and gains. So we've got a list of tension items. That's just a snapshot from a previous year where we agree a quantity and a rate based on previous year's outcome with Ross and fix that for the year, and then we monitor ourselves every month on that. So Ross has wanted a couple of extra ones put in there this year, which we've done, and so we're trucking along doing that as game. We review that every month. I'd have to say that COVID has impacted that slightly this year in terms of some of the jobs like the rehabs where it is stop and start and things like that, but we do measure that in terms of the performance. And certainly the crews know about it, the stabilising crews know where they're sitting every month, and it really drives their performance in terms of trying to achieve those rates. Levels of service. So I guess pretty proud that we've got the best asset management team in the country. It's a combination of Brett leads it obviously, and we've got a combination of council staff and Downer staff. So it's a really great mix of sort of professionals and practitioners. So we're very lucky with that. So what they've developed, it was Colin's idea actually. We've developed a interactive asset management plan, which is a first for New Zealand, and in actual fact has been copied by other councils already and been adopted by Rata and other people. So it's gone down well with the industry. So got a lot of great recognition for that, which is well deserved, I think. And Brett and his team done a lot of work on levels of service and aligning that with the budget. So there's a moving target. You put the asset management plan together, and then the budgets come through from the agency are slightly different. So there's quite a bit of alignment done with that. And then we've looked at what customer expectations are, and this is, you can do it visually on this AMP. And the next thing we've got to do with Ross is work out a communication strategy so we actually tell road users what they can expect from the funding levels we've got. So feel free to chip in here, Brett, if you want to say anything else.
I guess what's different with say the levels of service this time round comparing to previous AMP rounds is that we've stated within the AMP that we'll define our level of service and measure our level of service through the percentage of poor and very poor assets over the network. So we calculated that out based on the the budgets that were approved and what we could afford to say renew and maintain for the different assets over the network. And so we forecasted those percentages going forward, and so we also obviously measure those throughout the year as well, so that we can see where we're tracking for our level of service against what we've stated in the AMP. And so it's this time round we believe we've got an AMP that we can sort of use on within an operational sort of basis, where in the past it's been more high level.
More about asset management, Brett. So again, some of the successes are that we've actually been recognised for our leadership and asset management, which is fantastic, and all down to Brett and his leadership. There's a snapshot down the bottom there of his team. So Colin's working from home due to his illnesses, but he's still very productive and adding a lot to the team. Dave Taylor's probably one of the best RAM operators in the country, and we sort of recognised that and promoted him to run a small team with including Jag as the information technician. Jag is another success story. He joined us and worked in our stabilising crew, so we got him in the office to do culvert inspections. Then Brett trained him up and Dave's trained him up, and now he's a very integral part of the team, and he's busy with doing drive overs with Brett every time he gets a chance to get out there and do our annual drive over. So he's really a valuable part of the team. We've got a centre of excellence in stabilising. I mean, we probably do more stabilising than anyone in the country. Do about 110,000 square metres. We've got 3 teams set up. Originally we had 1 or 1.5, but we've got 3 now, including an all-woman team. So that's a picture of some of them. There's a few more of them than that, but so we've got probably the only all-woman stabilising crew in the country. We have also got a all-woman rehab team as well. But these teams, I think the key thing about this is that they've been employed locally. They come to us with no skills or experience, and Victor Beach has done a great job in terms of setting up a development plan for them all. Working closely with them, and they originally started in different crews, and we put them together. And they are very efficient. They're very competitive, and they're pretty motivated in terms of their performance. It's great to see them, and so that's just a credit to the fact that we are, doing a lot for the industry, training local people. And I keep on saying to them, if you can pick up skills like this, you're going to be able to create a career for yourselves, in the industry, because there's going to be a lot of need for people with experience going forward. So they just are amazing in terms of how motivated they are. So it's great to see. Succession planning. So something I sort of try to focus on is sort of creating. I believe my role is to create an environment where people feel safe and they can develop to their full potential. So we're trying to get a learning environment. So we managed to promote 7 staff within the team and 5 crew. So one of the things I tried to do was change our frontline management out in the field. So traditionally we had the sort of grader operator or the digger operator who was a specialist who ran the team. So managed to change that, and so we've appointed Pee-wee as a 4-person. She's running a rehab team very successfully, which is great. She's had a lot of experience in the past and worked in Pyra. Levi Anderson's taken on from Ngarawahia School here, and it was one of our sort of cadets, came through, and now she's been appointed as 4-person for drainage. Ruben Naitai, he's been appointed as a foreman for the stabilising crew, and he's actually got his 2 sons working for us as well. So I mean, he's certainly recommending the experience. And Jacob Horton's a young cadet we had who we promoted into a civil supervisor role again, because he showed promise, and it's got a lot of potential, we thought. So our next, we're a bit hampered by COVID at the moment because we've got a skeleton crew here, but our next stage really is to put some training and support around those people so they can really develop to their full potential. So that's really positive from us, from my point of view, in that we are, creating opportunities for people locally. So I'm pretty proud about that. Also proud of the fact we had a lot of variations that we had to do last year, some of last minute, and we actually did $38 million worth of work. One of the rush jobs is Horatu River Road. We got the challenge to try and do that before Christmas, and we sort of got stuck in and did that. And I think that's a great asset from a network point of view. It slows me down twice a day going through it with Garris 60K, but other than that, it's a good asset, and it really has cut down the crashes that's happened in that intersection, so it's been positive. And Huntley platform, we started off sort of, it was a bit of a struggle to start with. We originally had another team from Hamilton going to help us, but they ended up on the Hamilton rail platform, so we actually formed a team locally, and our supply partner, PwC, Power Weed Control, came and provided some great resources, and we worked closely with our team, and I'd have to say we're pretty proud of what we achieved there. There was a lot of pressure and a lot of time constraints, and certainly came in on time and under budget, so pretty proud about that, and it was all done locally with our team here, so really pleased about that. Focus areas going forward, the recruitment of key roles. One of the problems of success is that people get recognised and offered jobs. I lost Jason, our performance and systems manager, to a high-powered job in Downer. Andre Stickling, our maintenance operation, also looked after unsealed and other things, and bridging and all those sort of things, a key role for us. Got promoted to a role in Hamilton Downer. Our QA technician got promoted to a role as a project engineer in Hamilton. And Adrian Russo, who was the HEB manager, got promoted to a role in HEB And so we've got a new person up there running that. So we've had some success. We've got a new QA technician, Amal, started. I've got a new start for Jason coming in January, Roman. But we're still searching for a maintenance operations manager. So that's a key role. And it's not very many people in the country got those sort of skills. So I think staff retention and crew retention is going to be really important for us over the next 6 to 12 months. There's a lot of jobs. I've just managed to retain one of our young project engineers. He was offered three offers from Higgins, our contractor, and 2 from consultants. So people, once they get recognised as doing well, they get targeted. So we managed to retain them. So and again, the culture and the experience and learning opportunities is one of the benefits he sees staying with us, not just the money. So that's good. And one of the other young project managers is getting targeted by a consultant. So it's an interesting situation we've got out there at the moment. So, and I just have to say that we're down about 5 staff at the moment. So we are struggling, and there's a lot of extra work with COVID as well. So certainly not easy at the moment. We're just going to finalise we've been working with Ross to finalise budgets and TCE. Again, the agency's funding isn't quite matched to AMP, so there's a bit of work to do there with Ross on that. As I said, a culture plan and values rollouts got delayed by COVID. We've got a communication strategy for the levels of service which Brett and Ross are going to work on in terms of that going forward. Unsealed road and vegetation control benchmarking. John Toby from WSP is yet to come back and just finish his benchmarking exercise. We did, as part of the rollover, we did a benchmarking exercise in terms of sealing, and we've looked at unsealed roads, metaling, we've looked at vegetation controls, and as part of the whole rollover, every single plant rate was reviewed. So that was all independently looked at by a bond CM. So all those sort of things were done in terms of just as a reset where we're going. So all our rates, all the supply partners' rates, everything was checked, plant rates, labour rates. So everything's been looked at from an independent point of view. So on CM do that thing as an expertise as they have for all contracts in New Zealand. So we've still got a couple of things to finish off on that. We've got John Toby's up Northland, so he can't get down here. So we're just going to tidy that off. Got lots of structural bridge repairs to do. There's lots of work in that area. We're doing some work on Tainui Bridge here, but still lots of other things to do. We've been refining our service request processes with the councils and working with their people in terms of some new systems. And we're also going to pick up some extra roles in terms of corridor access, so probably looking after some of the things like new entrance ways and things like that. So just help Ross's team out. And using some of our inspectors and others to help out. So we're already starting to do some of that work. There's an audit coming up, so we'll have to be organised for that. Brett's got an audit of his asset management system coming up fairly shortly as well. And there's the other key thing for us is we're going to deliver Pocono upgrade, and that's a challenging project. It's going very well. I think Ross is happy with it. If Ross is on, I'm sure he can say a few words if he wants to. Culvert replacements, got plenty of those to do. Low cost, low risk projects, we haven't been briefed on those yet because the agency's changed how they operate, but they will come up to as a project. We won't be doing the smaller projects like we were doing. They'll come as a sort of design project, so that'll be a different change for us. And we're also doing a lot of non-roading projects for Paul's team, things like car parks and cemetery entranceways and that type of thing around the place. So we're doing quite a bit of those. And rehabs, we've just finished our second and last rehab for the year. So Bell Road got sealed yesterday. So and both have come under budget, so we're pretty happy about that. A lot of the other rehab money is going into Pocono, so it's not doing as much. So we've got our crews working down in Tokoroa and then Hauraki at the moment, just to keep them busy because until we get briefed on some other work for next year. And that's it really. Is there any questions?
Brett, if you could take your screen. Yeah, great. Thank you. Thanks, Gary. Thanks, Brett, for the presentation. Very informative, and we do have a few questions. So, Councillor Church.
Thank you for the Chair. As usual, very good. Thank you very much. That's a really good presentation. Much appreciated, Ross. Two things. Page 47, at the top left-hand corner in tiny little writing, you've talked about footpaths, but this sentence doesn't finish. So that's my small question, and I've got a strategy question, an overall question.
Actually, I don't know what page that is. So
monthly report operation September 2021 rollover review. It's the one with the different coloured horse on it and the stars.
Oh.
So the top left-hand corner of that report under maintenance update is footpaths. Is the bottom second, the last item.
So this one here you're talking about?
Yep. That's,
dashboard.
Dashboard. Yeah, that's that dashboard. Sorry, good word.
Yeah. So that was just a snapshot of the September one. So
yeah, just because a footpath, it says, Gary, it says, it just doesn't finish a sentence. It says a large portion of the remaining ...
Oh, okay. Well, that's funny. Probably a draft, but I can tell you what's happening with footpaths. We've been out with Gareth and looked at a whole range of footpaths and coming up with a project at the moment. So Ross and Gareth are going to agree what the program is, and then we'll be into it. So we're ready to roll on this year's footpaths.
Okay, yeah, I guess a bit more clarity around that in the future would be helpful, maybe as a point of action. I don't know, through you, Chair.
Yep.
Yeah, because I think everyone loves footpaths, and it's great to see that Huntly and Te Kauwhata are getting some maintenance done their footpaths, but I think it's always comes up as a big area. Ross is.
Well, I know Ross is on, but he's definitely keen on doing lots of new footpath this year. So we're
through the chair, in response to your question, Councillor Church. So we are yet to provide the team with the implications of what NZTA have done with their funding. But what I can tell you is that we had a program to do around $1 million a year of new footpaths, which you will be aware in the LTP. That was down as a subsidised project. NZTA have decided that they will not provide the subsidy for that footpath project, for that footpath for the year. So I'm working through that with the finance team, and we'll be coming back to council with a proposal to see how we can fund that over the next 3 years.
Okay, thank you. Just and the other one, just the one that was the overall strategy. You touched on the work to be done on the communication strategy for level of service, and of course there was some, which I really appreciated, some fast action done around communication for the Pocono project around the roading and infrastructure. So I really, if it could have a bit more expansion about one, when we've got big infrastructure projects that impact, for a week or more, residents are ratepayers, and that one is a bigger one that's rolled on. We've had to get you've got a communications consultant to help with that, which is great. Can you expand a bit more on that communication strategy for level of service? And also, does that level of service strategy also include maintenance communication?
Yes, so again, through the chair, Councillor Church. So what we're working through as a team is that with NZTA having made some changes to the funding, we have had to reset our level of service throughout the year. Actually, in fact, over the 3 years. So how we'll be intending to wrap this up is once the finance team and myself have worked through the implications ultimately of what the NZTA changes are, how we're going to spend the money, we will be coming to this meeting with a proposal that says these are the changes in level of service from what we said we're going to deliver in the LTP process. And I guess we'll give some options in terms of how we move money around. So that will, based on how things are progressing, I would say that will happen in the new year.
Okay, so yeah, all right. So I've got the wrong end of six. So this is about changing and moving projects. Okay, got it. Well, I guess then I'm snagging within communication because I feel with our experience up in the Pocono that there is a siloing of infrastructure versus communication. and and impacts into the communities. And I'd like, not now, but I'd like that as an action point as to watch. There was some work that's been done, but I haven't actually seen it, so I recall. But I just kind of think that it's important for all projects that might take more than 5 or 6 days. How does infrastructure and communications to the impact on residents and road users or etc. How are they working together, and what's that work for? Because I feel there are some gaps and some opportunities to improve our level of service in that area.
Through the chair, perhaps I can make a comment on that. We had a meeting on this with Paul McPherson, Kirsty Wellington and Alan Kuiper on Monday about what information we're also providing in the Infrastructure Committee report, and also what we've got in CAMS as a way of trying to get better communication through to these types of committees, but also then working with the Alliance is one of the extensions of that around what do we need to put out as comms to externally. So at the moment, like the next paper that you've got, the Infrastructure Committee report from that Paul's done, doesn't include a lot of the information that we're doing in that, and that's what we need to improve. So I'm working with Ross on trying to get a summary of exceptions reporting into that report, but also what are we doing in CAMS, because we're not using it as effectively as we should at the moment, which is a tool for us to report this better going forward. And that's a reporting by the roading team, but also by the Alliance on this. So we're taking some action on that over the next month or so to get that happening better. So hopefully the next committee report will have some of those highlights that you might be looking for, Councillor Church, in terms of things like exceptions reporting and other things.
Yeah, thanks, Jackie. But it's more also when it impacts the public, right? Roadworks,
yep.
As to how we communicate and let them know, putting that down and what that's part of it is too. So yeah, I know.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, we need to get better at that too. Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Through Mr. Chair, I just say that we have got a communication strategy for all our projects, so we develop that as part of the rollover as well. So that's separate to this levels of service strategy. But so we've worked with John Brown, so we've got a process we follow for all our rehabs and projects like that. Pocono was probably we could have improved our whole engagement on that, I think, but that's been a one-off project. But in terms of all our other projects, we follow a process, and it's we've been sort of working closely with John Brown.
Yeah,
right.
Thanks for that update. Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Church. Good questions, and look forward, Ross, to getting an update once you've worked through the NZTA subsidies and where their subsidies are put to and against, and how we're working through that. So I appreciate that. And also around comms is extremely important, and Pocono is a good example of where we could maybe have done a little bit better. So thanks very much. Councillor Beck.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for a beautiful segue, Mr. Chair. That was nicely done. Anticipating my commentary, really just picking up on Ross, your comments around footpaths and shared paths. I absolutely endorse Councillor Church's point that these are really important and of high focus for our communities. There's high expectations. So can I suggest that when the team have finished, understanding what needs to be done and what NZTA's subsidy will stretch to, that we perhaps have a more of a workshop type discussion around that. And I make the point, I recently had the opportunity, last week had the opportunity to look at the new Te Awa section on the St. Peter's stretch from between the Avantidrome and running across St. Peter's land, and the standard of that is extraordinary. To be frank, it's a wonder of the modern world to see put together. And we don't need that standard right throughout the district on everything. Like, it's wonderful, it'll be maintenance free for decades. But actually what a lot of the shared paths our communities would be happy with on roads and areas where there's missing bits, etc., is not quite of that standard. They'd rather have something rather than something to that standard, and a lot less of it. So I think this would be a good thing to workshop, and I really encourage, before decisions are firmed up, that there's elected member input into that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lynch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gary, thank you for your presentation. It's brilliant as always, or as it has been in the past. We haven't seen you for quite a while. Talking about your comms, and because you brought up about Tainui Bridge, could we please have some comms about it? Just exactly what you're doing on Tainui Bridge and how long it's going to take. I'm sure His Worship has had to field as many calls as I have about it, and it's becoming a continual bugbear. So just something that can go out, please, explaining to the public what's happening to the bridge would be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith.
Thank you. And I'm not sure whether I'm going to counter Councillor Beck or not, but my concern is with footpaths, giving it back to politicians, it becomes a political football once again. And I thought we had a policy in relation to that. So I think once and for all, if we're going to get in a group of politicians, that the likes of country living, there's footpaths are starting to encroach that, and that was never the intention. And I see Te Awa as the exception there, and that is a fantastic asset for the region and New Zealand, not only the districts involved. So I'm just urging caution in relation to getting politicians involved in footpaths again. It's been a nightmare every time that that's been the case. And if we want to make a final yet to be determined, altered in the next term of council, about where footpaths actually go, because we've got this urbanisation throughout the district, and there seems to be a grey area developing as to whether it's in country living, whether it's in rural, where it really goes. So I hope we're not looking to open up that can of worms, please. Thank you.
No, Councillor Smith, I think you're right, it can open up a can of worms, and plenty of horse trading will be going on in that situation. But I think it was more around where Councillor Beck was going, was probably for us is a better understanding of what the effects the subsidies or the lack of subsidies have on different work streams is something that I think we all need to understand. So I think that'll be very good.
Is if we don't have a subsidy, we pay for it entirely. That's what's happened in the past. And so we only, in the days gone by when they poured the subsidy on footpaths, we did half the work because we don't get the half share from NZTA. It was as simple as that. As it's more complicated than that now, I don't think it needs a lot of understanding. But I wait to see. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Before we go to Councillor Watson, Alison, did you have a comment on this?
I just wanted to remind the council that one of your significant forecasting assumptions in the long-term plan is that works that can attract subsidy will not be undertaken without subsidy. So that is something you will need to work through. And we need to get some legal advice just around whether if you were to put something all as local share and not wait for subsidy to be made available, whether that triggers an LTP amendment. We just need to work through that.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Councillor Watson.
Thank you for that update. I found it very informative. Looking forward to the information. I think it's very good. As a rural councillor, one of my main questions I field is what's happening with the road. When's this one being repaired? This has got a problem. Where are we going to go? So I'm sort of hoping that we'll be able to then, in some ways, run interference for you guys and actually stop some of the problems coming through, because we'll now know the information and be able to report straight back, and it'll make everybody look better. So just hoping that information will definitely come through to all the councillors, and we can know what roads are being fixed ahead of time, so that we can sort of help with the comms, because we do get phone calls, and it's very frustrating when you say don't know what's going on, and the next week our road gets tar sealed, and so that should make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. I see that we have no more questions. So once again, thanks Gary, thanks Brett for your presentation. Very informative. Appreciate you coming along. And on behalf of the Infrastructure Committee, wish all the Alliance team, yourselves and all of the Alliance team, a Merry Christmas, and keep safe, and we'll see you in the new year.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, thank you. Right, item 6.3, page 53, service delivery project update, project report update. Paul McPherson, welcome.
Thank you. Morning, everyone. I'll take the report as read. The key parts of it are that the COVID-19 event and the lockdowns and the border issues we've had are impacting our delivery. To the end of October, we're looking at about 1 million behind what was forecast, and November will be something similar, although we have been able to start moving on a lot of the projects since the lockdown level has changed for the Waikato area. Other than that, I think the only thing that I'd like to comment on is probably the mapping. We're working with Anton and GIS and getting quite advanced on mapping the projects directly from CAMS. So I see that as being a great thing in the future for us, meaning that you can check on the status and get the latest update at any time you like from the mapping software. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you for the report. Councillor Ear.
Thank you, and thank you very much for the report. Look, I think this project and the project mapping tool is just going to be so beneficial. But I guess in terms of maintaining the regular updates, is that going to, how much pressure is that going to be putting on the IT team? Is that something that your team will do, or does it then get transferred to a different team? And how much capacity have we got to be dealing with the updates on a regular basis?
So the beauty of it is that the project managers use CAMS at least weekly, but a lot of them will be using it on a daily basis, and so those will be updated and should be up to date at least to within a week. Then this GIS software will update each night, so it'll take that information automatically from CAMS and update it. So there's very little, if any, input once we've got it all set up from the project managers and from my team. Yeah.
Fantastic. I'm excited to see that.
Thank you. Councillor Beck.
Yeah, thank you. Greetings, Paul. Just picking up on the comment in page 3 of your report, 55 of our agenda, the last sentence there about significant or substantial price increases for a broad range of construction materials in December, January. Spoiler alert, February is not looking good either, nor is March. So we all know this is coming, right? There's no news here, but I'm just wondering, what does this actually mean looking forward? I mean, your team must be starting to form a view on the impact that it'll have, along with the other shortages that you've had in that contract. And I suspect it'll be material. Any commentary on that?
Yeah, we are expecting shortages in materials. We're already seeing that, and the increase in costs from those shortages we're expecting to see come through as well. We talked at length between the team, within the team, about what we could do to mitigate some of these issues. We thought about pre-purchasing, for example, framing timber for buildings that we know are coming, or other materials. It really has big problems when you do that, about when you have contracts where the principal supplies materials, you don't have any control over wastage. Often when you, for example, for framing timber, it would go through a framing company anyway. So you'd have to supply the timber to the framing company. It just gets really complex and difficult. We have had instances in the past where we've pre-purchased things and it's come back to bite us, and that the project has developed and moved on, and we either didn't need it or it was not the right item, in particular things like pumps for Three Waters projects. So we're a little bit hesitant to try and pre-purchase too much. We're trying to identify materials that are needed for specific projects that we know there's going to be a long lead-in time, and order those specific items early. That these are things like lighting poles and lighting fixtures. But apart from that, we don't think it's worthwhile trying to buy general materials that we think we might use. Apart from trying to store it and keep it secure, it might not be the actual material we need on the time at the time. So
I think you'll find Alison will start looking very grumpy very soon if you engage too much in a futures trading activity. So that means inevitably the conclusion will be that we're either going to pay more than we're currently budgeting, or we're going to end up doing less because we've run out of budget and we'll have to not do something. I guess I'm just asking because that we can see it now. That is clearly, inevitable now. But I don't sort of see that reflected in the reports. Am I wrong in that, or am I looking in the wrong place?
You're not seeing that the budgets are probably going to be short in the reports?
Well, if we're going to blow out or we're going to do less, one or the other.
Yes, it's just hard to work out what it's going to be. For a lot of it, so for some projects, we can cut the cloth to suit, and other projects we won't be able to do that. So we know it's going to be a pressure point, so we're always looking to value engineer. We're trying to make sure that what we're doing is getting best bang for buck. That's as far as we can really take that. I haven't looked to see what the impact would be onto the various projects themselves of any particular percentage increase in materials, that sort of thing. A lot of it might not be too much about the increase in cost so much as the delay. If we can't get materials, if there's a 20-week lead-in for a particular item, that's really going to impact on us. So.
Okay, well, I'll leave it with you and your team. Thank you.
Yeah. A good discussion for in the new year, Councillor Beck, in regard to the effects that this is COVID's having on us, as in within what do we do? Do we do less work or do we find more money? It's one of the two sort of things. So I think that's a discussion we do need to have. Councillor Willerton.
Yeah, thank you for that. It's probably along a similar vein, just through the chair. Now, like I got told yesterday that framing, if you order a house, is now July. So it's more than, we're talking 6 months wait. Everything's just blowing out, and costs. And so I think it's going to be both. You're not only going to do things, it's also going to go up. So we compromise everywhere. And so sort of, again, we're really crystal ball glazing. So how is that going to affect finance when, I heard on Monday that it's 18 months forecasting our budgets. So really, to me, we need to be closer aligned and forecast, because otherwise we seem to be paying a lot of interest at the moment and getting nothing done. And so how are we going to resolve some of these issues, please?
Is that directed at myself or Alison?
It's directed at ELT.
I think if I might speak to that through you, Mr. Chair. So the interest that we're paying right now is on works that have already been completed. So that's something to be mindful of. So when we're talking about the swaps and the management of that and that cash flow management, yes, we do need to look at that and think about what that might look like. And we will perhaps work closer to the minimum level instead of the maximum, but that's less about the interest costs that we're paying right now is more associated with what we already have completed. So just to, I'm not sure that clarified anything, but yes, we'll look at cash flow and we'll need to make some assumptions around how much swap cover, so that derivative that we put in place to manage the interest rate risk. We'll have to look at how we manage that over the short term in terms of entering into any new arrangements.
Yeah, no, that's very good. I just really want to make aware because, we don't want to be in a situation where we've got forward cover, we can't do the projects for whatever reason, and there's going to be several reasons. And I see Roger's there. I'm not sure if he wants to speak to it as well.
Yeah,
sorry, Eugene.
Yeah, no, thank you, Alison. Before I go to Councillor Church, Roger and Jackie Bishop.
Oh, yeah, I'll have another question before after this, if I wouldn't mind.
Yeah.
Right, good morning, councillors. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hey, look, I guess the last service delivery report you got, we were saying, we think COVID's going to have an impact. It hasn't quite caught up with us yet. We'll keep an eye on it. The flavour of this report is definitely different. It's we now are seeing the impacts of it, and we've described a wee bit of what those impacts look like in the report. The questions you're asking are the right ones, which is looking forward, what are the true implications on the program of works we've got and on our budgets and on the timing of what our communities are getting, i.e. what did we promise them and when will they see something? And those are the right questions. We are a little bit early to answer those questions. I guess the generic answers will be, we wrote up the LTP with a floating line this time, knowing that we can sort of cope with fluctuations in price, and our idea would be to deliver more if we can get efficiencies, but COVID's starting to suggest that maybe we're going to deliver less. So there will be conversations as that becomes clearer. I guess we need to remember the teams are working hard to say there are certain things we can't do because of whether it's border restrictions, availability of contractors, unavailability of materials, etc. But we are looking at what can we do? Is there things that are in year 2, year 3 of the LTP that we can bring forward because we do have the ability to deliver them now, given the contractor availability or the types of materials that are there. So it's a very dynamic landscape. We're working really, really hard to sort of rebalance what is possible. And we'll be obviously coming back to you with reports and requests if we want to change the order of the program we're delivering, etc. So you're asking the right questions. After Christmas, we'll have a better idea of some of these impacts, and we will come back to you with slightly more detail on implications to the program and the budgets.
Thank you, Roger. Did you want to add to that, Jackie?
Yeah, just through you, Chair, I'm having a bit of an offline conversation also with Everard on this, our procurement manager. So operationally, he and I have been talking about how do we look at this from a procurement planning, but also how do we get mechanisms in contracts that help us to de-risk it a little bit, and also work with who we've got as contractors and how they help us de-risk it. So I think there's probably different ways to approach it, and we're not wrong in any of these. It's just bringing them to a head and looking at what's possible. So I think it's probably going to be a case of just trying to work that through and be smart about it, and working across finance, Paul's area, procurement, and our contracts area to find solutions that help us to ride the flow a little bit better.
Thank you. I will go to Councillor Church and then I'll come to Councillor. Councillor Whittam, is it related to this?
Yeah. Well, yeah, and then it's just like I say, and there is no 50 mil galv pipe, and there's no 65 mil galv pipe available if you went and order it today. So it's everything, and we really need to be aware of projects, because I mean, like that pipe, it just goes on and on. The effects, I just think we're actually underestimating the effect it's going to have. I really do. Yeah. There are a lot of shortages everywhere. Steel, it's just everything we knew. Some companies have bought up all the mesh for concrete. Just goes on and on and on. So yeah, it's huge shortages, huge.
It surely is, and that's only one part of the problem at the moment. We've got we've got supply chain issues, we've got shortage of product, but the other thing that's pretty alarming too is skill shortage right across the spectrum. Getting expertise and getting the people that know what they're doing in all areas is extremely difficult, and the ones that are got the skills in those areas are probably got 12 months work ahead of them. So definitely is another issue. Thanks. Councillor Church.
Through Chair, yeah, good discussions. Yeah, I agree with you, Councillor Wilson, that to be in terms of that risk analysis, I think we ultimately need to be really conservative in our risk profile, because we would better to over-deliver than under-deliver in terms of what's happening, and so that we can clearly understand that landscape. Couple of questions. Just, I can't find, Roger, the Pocono Library facility or the Market Road, let's call it that piece of land. I mean, we're assuming that those are linked, but I'm just flagging for you that I can't find it on your, seems to have dropped off. Number one. Number two is we've had conversations around LTP and inorganic. We understand that landscape. I understood from that LTP that assuming that we had a perfect world where we could deliver everything on time and Councillor Wellington's galvanised pipe would be available, etc. I thought that we were going to have a resource recovery centre in time for an organic as an example, but it's flagging at the end of 2024, basically, that we're going to have a resource centre up in Bollard Road. And that doesn't work, I don't think. So I thought it was about the 18 months that was going to be delivered. So just like offline some conversations around that. And what I'd also like to just flag just overall is just in general, in terms of the spreadsheets, I really like what you're doing. But a couple of things as an example, and I wonder whether the other councillors have examples in their area. Things like, say, the Pocono Train and Transport Initiative, and so train stations and transport, which are not Roger's Excel spreadsheet portfolio, but are actually infrastructure projects. Okay, and or discussions like, and my understanding is that, as an example, either Tuakau or Pocono may have a train station or both, and that's a progression of a business case with Auckland Transport, blah, 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 in the future. Now, to me, that is quite important for all of council because there's a lot of cost involved in PT, particularly trains, as an infrastructure project, but we're flagging only not all of those projects because they're off on a silo in a different part of council. So there may be other ones. So I just wonder whether some of those other ones that I feel are quite key infrastructure, because it's infrastructure as overall, that we should perhaps have as a sideline to this just the same sort of thing spreadsheet elsewhere. Because the other one that I flagged, I've actually just emailed to you, Eugene, is around some policies, maybe some policies and strategies that impact. We talked about the communication strategy in infrastructures and how the segue communication strategy perhaps with infrastructure. To me, that's quite a key infrastructure project and implications, but it's not infrastructure, but it affects it. So happy to have that conversation offline, but just some thoughts around how we actually report on those.
Yep. Thanks, Councillor Church, and around that work that's been done on a station in the northern area. I'll have a talk to Vishal because Vishal's been doing a lot of work in that area, so I'll get him to provide you or all of us an update.
Yeah, I just think Councillor Pettit shared is that perhaps there's other projects as well that other people are doing that are infrastructure that we should just tag at the bottom, even if it's just work in progress or doing. And I'm not sure what that list includes. I just know that probably is, and not just an update, but just a follow on each month, just with no more action, just so we don't forget them.
Okay. Thank you. We'll do that. Councillor Wallerton, did you have another question? Or
yes, if I may, it is a local one. I don't want to get the ire of everyone else, but I'd just like to bring it up. Just the Horsham Downs Link Road. I went out there this morning just to have a look, just to confirm because I've had a few phone calls. And on here, it's sort of yellow and a lot of green. And out there, it is certainly a lot of green because there's nothing started. And it says it started on the 8th of October. And I was of the understanding that it would be started for when the motorway comes through. And I would imagine it should be red. So if you're able to have some comment, I'm happy to take it offline. But because we've had such discussions over it, I sort of feel that it needs to be public. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We'll get an update. We can provide you an update offline.
Yep, no, give me that.
Okay, we're all done. Thank you. Councillor Church, did you have another question?
Yeah, just a quick
Last
one.
question.
Take it offline. But we've purchased, council's purchased land in Buckland Road in Tuakau for reserve.
Yeah.
And I guess, but we're not developing it till 2024. So I guess it feels like, we're going to make smart decisions about purchasing land in certain areas to be able to make these, even a grassed area for public use until we actually develop them seems better sense than to have something perhaps longer term in a bigger project. So I guess like the viability, we would talk about land in different areas in different communities often, and then we purchase some, which is fabulous, I think, in terms of green spaces. But I guess it's like that discussion overall as to when we have it and how we can then make it even basically usable to people while we're having a bigger scoping plan as to how we would use it long term. I just think that would be then usable a lot faster. That's just one example. So just like some feedback about that offline, or just as a general sense for all of the council properties that we might have as pieces of land sitting that we potentially could. I know Megan, this is being a bit simplistic, a mode flat surface kind of idea.
Right. Yep. Thank you. Right, thank you. Thank you very much, Paul, for the presentation. A little bit sobering in a way of what's happening out there. And but it's real and that's what's happening. So thanks for the update. Appreciate it. Right, moving on to item 6.4, page 69, Lake Kainui Drainage Project. And welcome, Rebecca, and I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you. I see Councillor Smith's hand's already up. I'll give a quick background. So yes, I'm presenting the Lake Kainui Drainage Project. So this one is looking to utilise some of our approved LTP budget to replace 2 culverts with a flat level crossing. One of these culverts at Lake Kainui being on private property. So the purpose of that budget that was set aside is to safeguard the reserve assets and the recreational use for all year round. And from that, there's been quite a bit of surface flooding that has occurred from the surrounding land use and being peat in nature. So the intention of these projects is to remove any obstructions to the road culvert to prevent any blockages allowing water to flow. Please note that the road culvert sets the lake level, so we would not be lowering the lake level by any means. This project came to us through the Lake Kainui Committee. They raised this as a frequent issue of surface flooding around the lake. And since then, this has been investigated by a hydrologist who have provided us with the recommendations that we've followed up with. And these recommendations, including these projects, are one aspect of other projects we will be looking to implement around Lake Kainui. But this one in particular is full support of all key stakeholders, including the committee, Fish and Game and the Regional Council. In addition to this, we will also be looking for alternative income for this project, in particular, potentially from the landowner themselves, and further discussions with Regional Council. So just to note that this budget, only a portion of it will be utilised for the private asset, potentially. And the great intention is that we want to safeguard the reserve assets. So I'll take the report as read from here and more than happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Rebecca. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thank you. When I read the when I read the report, I had some great concerns, and I've shared those with Roger and Rebecca, Eugene and the Mayor. So the long and the short of it is I am concerned about council working on a private piece of land and removing a culvert. And if you look at the page 71, that culvert number 2 is actually a crossing point as well. So it's a necessary access by the looks of things for the farm. So, and when I read the initial report, I either misunderstood or didn't quite get the wording that the large portion of the 200,000 was being spent, and my knowledge of drainage doesn't require that for 2 culverts. So I'm happy where it lands, but the reality is, without knowledge and having quotes, it's hard to, because taking culverts out, 2 of them, it's a fairly simple job. And if it's going to cost any more than 2,000 to rip out a couple of culverts, I'd be very surprised. But putting in, as Rebecca has said, a crossing for that landowner, that gets into regional council issues, and with crossing waterways, you've got to have a clearance. So I can, and you know, it's a bridge-like structure, and it's got to have a minimum clearance. If you look at what the regional council permits without a consent, and I'm just worried about how much of the money and what is the budget and where are the quotes, etc. So I could see that 200,000 being used up on somebody's crossing on private land, and whilst the lake level will not go down because of the road culvert, as Rebecca has said, I'm just concerned. And then I say to myself, well, this is operational within an item in the LTP, and we should let staff get on with it. But I with the greatest respect, I'm just a bit concerned that without seeing those dollars and cents and and I utmost respect for Rebecca, having worked with you on a number of projects now, but I do not believe, in all seriousness, that drainage is your area of expertise. And I'm not sure that we do have anyone in council that is. And when we get into crossing points and regional council rules, that crossing, if we're going to reinstate it, is going to be a lot more expensive than one really thinks. So I would like to see more detail, but happy for staff to get on with an operational matter. I'm torn. So I'll leave it at that. And I do appreciate the clarity that people have given to this, in the last couple of days. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, Councillor Smith. Megan, did you have something to add to that?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to comment in response to Councillor Smith. So it is a little bit controversial, the thought of spending council ratepayer money on a private asset, hence why we're here today. We weren't prepared to progress to the point of getting quotes or costings around it before we had this conversation with councillors. So whilst it may seem premature and that we don't have all of the information, we thought it was really important to get I guess a feel from councillors as to whether this was something that they supported and wanted us to investigate further, hence why we're here today. Just in regards to Rebecca's skill set, I think she does bring a lot of skills regarding water movement. She's probably stepped sideways into the reserve planning role. So her and also Emma, who's joined us in the reserves team, has come from regional council and the consenting process there. So we are upskilling in this area. And we've also engaged Meadow Waters as well to help us work our way through this. So more than happy to go away, get the costings, do a little bit more investigation, and prior to award of any contracts coming back to council, more than happy if that's what's needed or wanted. Just wanted to get that feel today as to whether it's something we should be looking at proceeding with.
Mr. Chair, can I just, there's one point that I didn't make, and it would be helpful, I think, insofar as Lake Kainui is a peat lake, and there's a number of our peat lakes out that way. We've also got Lake Rotakere and a lot of landowners around, and I know some landowners on that Lake Kainui committee, and it's in their interest to get water away. But the reality is, and our chairman, Eugene, has gone to the Regional Council Drainage Supervisor and has confirmed that in these areas, the land is sinking, the water is not rising, and as a result of drainage or over drainage, the land is sinking. And so the neighbouring landowners will say that their land is flooding, but their land is sinking. It is not the fault of council, and the water is maintained at the culvert height. So getting the water away, sensible, but we should not buy into the argument that the land is flooding. The land is sinking, and therefore it will encroach further into their pasture, making it unrealistic and uncommercial for productive use. So just want to make that point. It's very important that you don't get carried away and try and de-water land that's already sinking. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Gibb.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I just was going to give a bit of history and set a bit of a scene because I've been involved in conversations with Lake Kainui Committee as well as with staff and those neighbours who predominantly are on Lake Kainui Committee. So I'll let you in on that. For all the time I've been a councillor, so that's 8 years now, and prior to that, Dines Fulton has been in conversations with these people for probably the previous to me 6 years. What I'm mainly concerned in is looking after our asset, and our asset is the lake and the walkways. And with all the flooding over all of these different years I've been around, we have spent a lot of money on fixing the pathways, replanting the trees in the wetland area because of this flooding. And I'm trying to find, along with everybody, a solution that's going to take away that flooding issue. And apparently the culvert changes will help that. And it's finally, we've got a consensus between the regional council, our council staff, and the Lake Kainui Committee on a way forward. Up till now, every solution that's been put in front of all of these people, someone has said, no, that won't work, and no, we're not interested in. And we've never managed to get this off the table. We've never managed to find a solution. And I'm thinking there must have been, and I know of a few other circumstances over the years where council has paid for work on private land to help solve a council problem. There was a bridge, I remember, somewhere for a farmer that we paid for off a road. I don't know whether it was Elgood Road in my memory at some time. Even the assets like the latest one, the Ruawaro tennis court that was vested in us, we're paying to do that. And I know it's vested in us. But looking at the numbers of people that use that compared to the numbers of people that go around Lake Kainui and you can't even get a park anymore, that asset is really well supported by hundreds, if not up to thousands of local residents. So what I just want to do, and I think we need more information, I definitely agree with that. We need budgets and we need to know the cost of everything in more detail. I just want to see the bigger picture and look after our asset, which is an amazing asset. So well over 12 years, trying to find a solution. It's now in front of us for hopefully less than a couple of $100,000. The quotes will give us that. I would really like us to think of that bigger picture, as well as the fact, yes, let's try and get some money from the regional council and the private people if we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gibb. Before we go to Mayor Allen, I just comment, and Rebecca or Megan could correct me on this, but that $200,000 is for a whole range of work, not just the 2 culverts. I think the 2 culverts is just a small percentage, even though would like to see what those costs are, but it's a small part of the whole process. Is that correct, Megan?
Yes. So when the LTP budget was set, we did have to put a number in there without the solution completely known. So Te Miro Waters has been working on this for quite some time, and as Councillor Gibb mentioned, this has been an issue that staff have been trying to work with the committee on for a number of years. So at the time of the LTP, the $200,000 was a guesstimate, I guess, and needing further investigation. We've done that now, and it is part of the bigger solution. So if supported, once we go away and get those pricing for the work on these culverts, we will know what percentage of that budget would be utilised for that.
Thank you, Megan. Mary Ellen.
Yeah, probably just to a comment that Councillor Gibb made around in relation to the Ruawaro tennis court and the amount of money we're spending there and the people use it. I'd just also remind the council that we have a annual budget of $50,000 or $60,000 a year that goes into this lake. So don't use that as a comparison, please. It's an unfair push there. So I totally refute that comment. Rightio, it's probably the only one on the screen who does farm on peat and have done for my entire life. All right. So I do understand it probably better than anybody in this room, and probably half of the people that are advising these people. So firstly, peat consolidates. Yes, it does, but it doesn't consolidate forever. So when I hear that peat is sinking, it has a ceiling as far as where it will go. This is not what you would class as deep peat in this part of our district. If you want deep peat, you go further up into the north, or probably out around places like in Council Wellington will know this, around Uapoto Road and places like that, where it is bottomless peat. Okay, so this is not deep peat. This will actually be sitting on sand at a lower level than that. As far as the lake goes, I was water skiing on that lake 50 years ago. So I know the lake very well too. So I know this location well. My issue here was when I saw the dollar figure and the fact that it was pointing towards the culverts, I shuddered to think, because I'm doing culverts over the next couple of months on my own farm, and I'm damn sure if I had $200,000, I'd be doing more than culverts with it. So now I've just heard a comment from Megan that says that the culverts only make up a small part of it. So I did a bit more digging around. Okay, so first thing I did is I looked at the ownership around the lake. there's two farmers around the lake. One predominantly covers probably 2/3 to 3/4 of it, and the other farmer is where the outlet goes through there. I suppose I've got to ask the question, and I do know that one of them definitely is on the committee, and I presume the other one probably is too, as to whether they withdrew from the discussion around the recommendation to council. So I would say they had a direct conflict here, because they are also a direct benefactor of us doing this. And you know, we hold ourselves to a high account around these sorts of things. So I'm assuming that they took the same pedal. But in reality, I probably would say they didn't. Okay, so the second thing is, in my opinion, they need to be contributing, because they are probably the biggest benefactor of this, of us spending this money doing this. Because by the simple fact of keeping a constant lake level, and I know there's a winter level and a summer level, but at the end of the day, it has generally always been relatively consistent. I would say what's happened over time is the point discharge for the lake on its outlet is probably silted up. The culverts have actually, the culverts won't have sunk like people think. The culverts actually, the ground around them sinks, but the culverts stay stable. So what happens is the water doesn't discharge in the same fashion. So they probably need to be lowered. Now, if we're talking about a structure, and that would be on number 2, replacing I'm assuming we're talking about replacing a culvert with a hard structure over top and not a culvert. If I was a farmer, I'd want a culvert all day long rather than a structure. And any farmer that wants a bridge is yeah, I don't quite understand the rationale behind that one. But I think we need to actually redo the levels, and it sounds a little bit like they have been done. So the hydrologist should have been able to give you what that level is. I think we have, as I said to somebody the other day, we have had an extraordinary amount of rain this year compared to the previous 2 years, and that's why the track is actually flooded this year. No different than what actually happens with Lake Puketereni in those same events. It gets flooded around on the backside as well for the same sort of thing. So I wouldn't support us spending this money until there's been a broader discussion around who actually covers some of the cost of this. I have no problem with us doing this work, but I think the benefactors being probably one farmer in particular, and one as a minor player. If the land was surveyed and applied the rules around cost, cause and effect, and cost as regional council do, and I'm in a drainage district, the same as Councillor Smith, and how this land is assessed and what a target rate would be, is that one of them would be paying a particular amount of fund towards this, because he benefits from it immensely. So I know that probably confuses staff, but you've got to be fair and equitable to both the ratepayers and the benefactors of it. And the benefactors are, in a way, are the ratepayers have been able to use the track. But in saying that, I still understand the track is closed while some of the locals have it for duck shooting too. So maybe that's an old habit that needs to go and needs to be reviewed. So it has to be done, totally agree, but we actually need to actually question whether some of those, especially those 2 adjacent farmers and one in particular, is prepared to put his hand in the pocket along with regional council to solve an issue which is largely should be regional council, but we've ended up doing it because it's our asset, because if it wasn't our asset, we wouldn't be even there. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Before we go to Councillor Beck, Roger, did you have a comment?
Yeah, look, thank you, Mayor Allen. I guess you've said you hope you haven't confused staff. No, you haven't. The reality is we brought this paper to you to generate this conversation. Before we go out and talk to landowners and regional council, we kind of wanted to know what the bookends were. You're helping set those very well. The general principles I'm hearing is beneficiaries of the works should primarily pay for them. If so, that would be our starting point. The reality is we are a bit of a beneficiary because we've got a track and it's a very well utilised track. So we've got to work out what the value of maintaining that asset is in terms of cost savings of doing these works as opposed to ongoing high maintenance costs. But ultimately, what I'm hearing is staff can go away and have some more meaningful conversations with the relevant parties to try and strike up a fair and equitable cost distribution for this thing, and that leans heavily on the beneficiaries. Then we need to come back to council and say, this is where we've got to, this is how much it would cost for the various solutions, and this would be the cost share. So no, it's helpful. Thank you, Mayor Allen.
No problem. Look, and as a farmer, I would say I'd love the water to be at the level as those pitches through the summer months, because it will keep the pastures green and lush. But more generally, what happens is the water level drops, and grass on peat has a tendency to not be deep rooted because of the acidity of the soils. So consequently, when the water level drops, the grass drops off as well. But anyway, that's my 2 bobs worth in relation to it. It has to be done. It's just, let's be fair and equitable with this.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Beck.
Yeah, so I certainly support the Mayor's comments in regards to those that benefit should help pay. And I guess my key concern coming out of Councillor Smith's comments, and I would be hesitant to suggest that he has been dramatic in his purposes of costing, saying it's $2,000 a culvert. But if that is in the ballpark, so looking at a budget of 210, 4,000 of which is our 2 culverts, and some huge number is ascribed to the bridge structure, then I would be very reluctant to spend that sort of proportion around the private benefit crossing. So yeah, I don't need to know the budget. I don't need to know the absolute detail, but in broad terms, benefit should cost should reflect, who contributes to cost should reflect benefit, and certainly it shouldn't be in the manner of 4,000 versus 206, allowing for Councillor Smith's calculation. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I've got 2 more people for questions here. So Councillor Church.
Thank you, through the chair. Thank you. Look, the discussion's been really helpful to me because I'm not so aware of the lake itself. So it's been most helpful to get my head around, the consequences. I guess my input would be, and I appreciate all really good information. So Councillor Gibb was talking about how much usage that lake has. Then we've got the peat issues. And to me, and we're obviously already putting, $60,000 a year into that lake as it is. So my input would be, what's the cost benefit analysis in terms of comparativeness of, if we had that money, what else could we do with it to give community benefit? Or is it a sinking hole because of the geography of the place that it's never going to be fixable completely because of its geography? And so then do we go, what's it going to look like in 5 or 10 years or 15 years time, and how much effort, time, as well as money do we put into this as well, as opposed to some other lake or facility that we might get better bangs for our bucks? I think I'd just like to see that kind of as an understanding of the scenario, because hey, if it's like this project will fix it and we'll have a long-term outcome, that's, I understand that, because I hear that it's well used and loved, and there's obviously those things about private and public benefits. I absolutely agree with that. But also, what's the alternative? What other places could we get, if this is potentially not something that's actually going to improve the asset long term? If that's
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, thank you. Councillor Gibb.
Yes, just a bit of clarity. I would like it if the staff could find out a bit more about that culvert too, because my understanding is that there's a culvert there already, which is a little bit bigger than culvert 1, but it hasn't got a bridge structure over it. It's like a bit of a couple of wooden planks or something. I'd like to understand a bit more about the type, or what would you call it, how big that bridge structure would be, because I think it's only like a little walkway, like between a drain, between 2 paddocks, where we've all got them on our farms. They're not massive concrete bridge structures. So that would be really helpful when you come back to us to have that understanding. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gibb. Before I go to Councillor Smith, I'd just like to say that conversation I had with a person from regional yesterday discussion was he wasn't talking about, this is not here to lower the lake level or anything like that. That's set up at the road. This is not to lower lake level, it's removing water efficiently. And that's what this is to achieve. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, two issues. Firstly, Councillor Gibb, in the regional plan, there's a permitted activity how you cross water, and there's a minimum clearance. I think it's 2 metres above the high water mark. So that would be what the hydrologist says, and then going above that if you're crossing a waterway. So, and I'm not sure whether this complies, and you've got to get, whilst it's a permitted activity, if you comply with that, you've still got to get a district council building consent. So it's not just simply, if you take out a culvert that's got a couple of planks on and you try to bridge it, then you go to regional council standards of how you cross a waterway, be it a drain or otherwise. So there's the right way to do things, and council has to do it correctly. So there's a bit more investigation, please, as to if you're taking out a culvert and you're going to put a structure, what are the implications of the, and it may be that you can do a small one, but my understanding of the permitted activities under the drainage rules, it's got to be a certain clearance, and that then makes it a rather, more expensive. Secondly, when I was discussing with Rebecca yesterday, she tells me there's paper coming on the bigger picture issues that 200,000 budget was to apply to. I just wonder whether it would be helpful, Mr. Chair, if Rebecca or Megan could just give a very quick synopsis of what the intention there is, please, because I think that might help with the discussion. Although on this we need some more information, but I think the bigger picture might help if that could be done in a couple of moments. Thank you.
Yeah, if you can give us a quick brief, Rebecca.
Yeah.
Not too much.
Can do. So, and it reflects again, I think it was Councillor Church's comment about thinking what is not just the solution for the next 5 years, but the next 20 years and more. And that is what the bigger picture is looking at. So it is taking a wider view of the full catchment, understanding the activities that are happening in that area, and what potential we have to possibly increase the reserve size or find an alternative track around the lake at a higher elevated level. There's more investigation that needs to be done, because I believe, as Mayor Sanson also mentioned, that peat does not decline forever at an exponential rate. It will find a limit at some point. So understanding where that hits in our time frame, or the peat declines in that time frame, to where we can best then implement structures such as boardwalks or an alternative track. That's further understanding that we'll be investigating on the side of the hopefully immediate culvert removal and replacement. And hopefully the culvert replacement is sort of stage one, just to get water flowing accurately. And then we can also map or model understandably the catchment itself without any restrictions or structures for that water flow to the lake level held at the road culvert. So a bit more detail to come in another report, but that takes a bit more planning and discussion with surrounding landowners and the group as well.
Thank you, Rebecca. Look, one more question from Councillor Maguire, and then I'll wrap this up.
Yeah, sorry about that, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I can understand why you're just not lowering the culverts, which is a far cheaper option. I've been doing that all my life. I've been farming on peat all my life, and I know that you've got to lower them from time to time when the peat sinks and the culvert comes up. So why aren't we doing that? That's a far cheaper option than any bridge system. And yeah, it's to me, it's a very simple job, but anyway, I've been dealing with it all my life, so it's doesn't sound complicated to me at all. But thank you.
I totally agree with you, Councillor.
Rebecca, did you look? Thank you, Councillor Maguire. Look, I think what we do, this has been very good conversation, good information provided. I think that it's pretty clear here that we would require more information. We support a solution to get this done, repaired. We need a bit of understanding on how this is going to be shared amongst people that are affected by this. So if everybody's happy, that we receive this report for further information.
Yep.
Are we?
I'll move that the report be received and seeking a supplementary report to progress the matter.
Yeah, and I think it's clear we accept the Tomato report on this and the hydraulic assessments that have been done to this and the solutions. We just need a bit of a clarity on how this is funded.
Yeah, look, I'm happy to second that, Mr. Chair. And I think you're right. You know, that's why I said the hydrologist would have set a level. It is, as Councillor Maguire said, the replacement of 3 culverts or lowering of 3 culverts per year. Generally replace them when you dig them out because they're generally a bit aged at that point. But at the end of the day, it's I think we just need a bit more detail around what that budget was actually for.
Yeah, yeah.
And Mr. Chairman, I don't like disagreeing with the Mayor that often, but the reality is, and Councillor Maguire, if you keep lowering culverts at the outlet, downstream, you then run into problems. You've got to keep going lower and lower and lower. So you can't dig drains to China. So normally it's done from the mouth back up to the source. And so whilst you can lower those first 2 or 3 culverts, you've got to make sure the flow can carry on from that point. So
yeah, I know that, Mel. I know you got it.
So if it's that simple,
yeah, well, it is simple.
Yeah, thank you very much. As Councillor Gibb mentioned, this has huge community benefit, this site, and you know, I'm pretty sure we have got a solution here. We just need to get a little bit more detail, and we'll be able to get on with it and keep that asset in a good condition for a long time ahead. So I am finishing off on that. Councillor Church, is this in relation to this?
Yeah, just a question. So that new resolution is a substantive resolution. Is there a process to change that?
Well, do we want to do this or just receive this report?
Well, because there's a recommendation on page 70. So just, I mean, I would agree with the new resolution. But does that become the substantive resolution? Do we have to do anything else?
A recommendation is not a resolution. I put a resolution which supersedes the recommendation, if you don't mind me saying so, sir.
Cool. Just clarifying.
Okay. Fine. Thank you very much. Right, that's the end of.
You want to put that, Mr. Chair, because it hasn't been put.
Sorry, Councillor Smith, what was?
You haven't actually put the motion.
Resolution.
That seconded.
Okay, sorry. We have a mover in Councillor Smith, second in Mary Ellen. All in favour?
Yep.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Right, that's the end of our public meeting where I look for